Back from the Joint Agriculture Committee meeting in Afton, Wyoming. Beautiful country down there in Star Valley. If you've never made it down that direction, make sure to put it on your calendars for some time as a vacation. They do a lot of different diversified type of farming down in that area, and it's just pretty country. It really is beautiful down there. We talked about several issues on the Ag Committee this go around. What most of it centered on was in regards to livestock board and livestock rustling, and how to confront some of the issues that are facing the livestock board here recently. One of the biggest issues that they're facing is the fact that there are 4 livestock investigators to cover the entire state of Wyoming, and they handle livestock theft. That's what they're charged with doing. And a lot of the conversation centered on that specifically because of the fact that I don't think anybody believes they can truly handle the entire state of Wyoming. In fact, they depend on the sheriff's department considerably in each county to assist them, whether it's first on scene or in their investigative ability. That's what they depend on. So some of the testimony received from the Livestock Board and their new director, Steve True, is in regards to how that is going to move forward under his leadership. And that's specifically what Steve True has testified as saying, is that he's going to work with the county sheriffs on educating them on how to understand brands and how to understand livestock theft. He's also going to work with them and the producers, cattle producers, on how to prevent livestock theft. I think that's a really good idea, and I think that's probably headed in the right direction, and I hope he can get it done. Some of the testimony that we've received from the public says that those things need to be done in order to actually better serve the producers in the state of Wyoming that are paying for this service. We are obligated, and we need to make sure that it happens. So another thing that happened in regards to that is I brought a piece of legislation to the Ag Committee for their decision on whether or not they wanted a sponsor that could have been a solution to this situation. It's a big bill. It really is a big change in livestock investigations in the state of Wyoming. And I think it's worth noting that, you know, that's a hard decision when you're talking about what the bill did was it eliminated the 4 livestock investigators. It took the money that was used to pay those livestock investigators, and it would be used for the county sheriffs throughout the state for annual training to be given by the livestock board, and also as reimbursement for the county sheriffs to perform these livestock investigations. So that was one of the options that the Ag Committee had the opportunity to look at, and like I said, that's a big bill, and that's kind of a big decision. The Ag Committee decided not to sponsor that piece of legislation, which I am totally fine with. That's you know, allowing Director True to go forward and see what he can do, see if he can turn his agency around and get him heading in the right direction. And that's something I talked about with Director True, is that we're all going to expect to see some type of movement forward, some type of doing a better job in regards to that agency and producers. And I told him if we're not seeing it, then that piece of legislation will come back this February, and we will run it through the legislative process to see what the rest of the state of Wyoming thinks about it. And that's a hard deal, and that's what I'm paid to do, is to sometimes you got to be the bad guy, I guess. And I really think that under Director True's leadership, that they have a pretty good chance of making that happen and get that job done. He's got his shoulder down and is going to work pretty hard at it. It's just a really hard situation, and I wish him all the luck, and I hope he can get her done. Some other issues we looked at one of them was in regards to a resolution supporting federal action in regards to GMOs. And what that resolution called for was federal action in regards to labeling of GMOs, so that there's not 50 different solutions out floating around for producers to have to worry about the 50 different types of regulations they might be facing. And that's the premise and the reason behind that resolution. I cannot support a resolution that calls for federal action in regards to more regulations. That's reaching a little too far personally for me. And the reason I say that is because of some of the other programs that have been implemented by the federal government for agriculture that have just not worked, and ultimately were not what the ag community wanted. And they all start with good intent and a good plan, and somewhere in between getting out the door and actually being implemented is when things go awry. And specifically, I'll call out the COOL program in that regard. And that's what I don't want to see happen to other producers, is they ask for a program that does A, B, and C, and they get D, E, and F. That's my reasoning on why I voted no on that resolution. The resolution did pass, though. There was only 2 of us that voted against the resolution. So that resolution will be considered by the 2016 budget session, or at the 2016 budget session by the 63rd legislature, and we'll see what happens with that and where that goes from there. That's pretty much it. It really wasn't a lot to consider by the Ag Committee this go around, which is essentially good. I think we've all got our sights set on the budget session coming up and what we're going to do about such a shortfall in revenue to be able to operate the state. One of the messages that I'm talking about with a lot of my friends in the legislature, and they're on the same page, is we've got to figure out a way to tighten our belt. The state of Wyoming has to tighten their belt, mind you, not the people of Wyoming. I don't think it's the time to even look at any other types of sorts of revenue for the state of Wyoming to try and go after. Now's the time for the state of Wyoming to look at avenues which we can tighten our belt and still serve the people of Wyoming in the manner that they've come to expect. And that's part of the problem, is figuring out that problem and moving forward on that. Next week I'll be at I got a task force meeting for the Digital Information Privacy Task Force down in Laramie, and I'll update you once we're done with that next week. Until then, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to post them on this Facebook page, or hit me on Twitter, or on my website, or my email addresses, or just give me a ring.